Klean Radio starts now.
Welcome, Los Angeles, KFWB News Talk 980 and worldwide at kleanradio.com. That's Klean with a K. I'm Judah. Andrew's not in tonight. He's on a little R&R, a little well-needed R&R. I'd like to welcome all our listeners. This is a show about addiction and recovery and all the things that fit into it. And there's a lot of sad news that's happened this week. We have Junior Seau dying. People are trying to blame it on a million different things, whether it's head trauma, whether it's depression. And I was actually talking with one of the producers outside, Rand, who's been in the radio industry for years. And he was sharing this story with me about how for years he was on the air for 12 years, and then he switched from being on the air to the other side of the glass. And when he went to the other side of the glass, how he really missed being on the air. And I think a lot of people out there that, whatever types of jobs you have, whether you switch jobs, whether it's you're 55 and you retire and, you feel this that you're not needed anymore. And some people turn to alcohol and drugs. Some people get severely depressed. And these are things people aren't talking about, especially enough with men, because it's not easy for a guy. And I'm sure Junior Seau, who is this, he played in the NFL for 19 years, played for USC, is a hero, was a hero to his, to Hawaiians, to everybody. How could a guy like that say, I'm in pain, I'm in trouble? And I think if you're a man out there, if you're a woman, if you're anybody, whoever's out there listening, we are a show about addiction and recovery. But for people out there that are sober too, that are going through a rough time, that are going through depression, it's okay to say out loud, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I don't know what I am. And I don't think a lot of people do know what depression is. And we have an amazing psychiatrist in the studio co-hosting with me tonight who is just a close friend, just a great guy who is the psychiatrist of Klean Treatment Center. His name is Dr. Jason Coe. Welcome back to Klean Radio, Doc.
Thank you, Judah. I'm glad to be here.
And my first question to you is, what is depression?
Well, depression is, we define it as a series of symptoms. We're talking about sadness, low mood, crying, sleep disturbance, appetite disturbance, a lack of motivation, inability to experience pleasure. And as all of the symptoms worsen and the depression deepens, people begin to become hopeless, helpless. They think they're no good. They think nobody wants them. And then they develop suicidal thoughts, and my goodness, they get into this downward spiral and a kind of tunnel vision,
right,
to where they think it's hopeless and that there's no way they can get better. And that's when they become dangerous to themselves.
So I've noticed this. I've noticed when a lot of people get sober, like I did myself, you get sober and you're the new kid in town. You go to meetings and everybody's rooting for you. You got a month, you got a day, you got 90 days, you got a year. And then all of a sudden, you're not the focus anymore.
The newness wears off.
The newness wears off. And I've noticed, maybe you just brought up something that I never even thought about, that's where a lot of the depression comes from when people are sober, is that they're not as celebrated. And I've talked about that. We have to celebrate people that have 13 years just like we do. And I'm not saying that because just like we do with people with 2 days, because it's a major accomplishment.
Right. Yeah. I think that is something we don't think about, is that, once they get a year or two, they figure, well, this person doesn't need the support that they needed in the beginning.
Right.
But that's not true.
And they even might need more support, because the longer you stay sober, the more things you're gaining in your life. You might get a girlfriend, you might get married, you might get a new job. And those are things you're going to constantly need support with.
Well, and you're dealing with a sober life, and you're dealing with the things that probably, or the issues that probably motivated the using in the beginning.
Right.
So that those issues start to come up, and this person needs help at that point more than ever.
What is it about? I mean, obviously with men, we're finding more and more men have food issues. And what is this thing about? I mean, we live in a society where men really have a hard time sharing that they're, I'm the provider. That's that's what a man should think. And when they don't have certain things, and they could hit a depression, and who do they talk to?
Right. Men don't talk. Women are more likely to talk. More women come to treatment than men.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Men.
I bet you most people didn't know that.
Yeah. Men stay away from treatment if at all possible. And when they do come in, it's usually worse because, they've been forced in by family or they've just let it go too long. Men think they're supposed to be tough, suck it up, and be strong. So depression is something they deal with by being tough, but that doesn't always work. It's not, depression is not a moral issue where you can just be strong and get over it. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a real serious illness.
And by the way, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Klean Radio Live. The number here is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. Give us a call with any questions you might have about addiction, recovery, sobriety. If you're out there driving around and you're having a rough time tonight, you don't need, I'm not saying we're going to be able to cure your rough time, but give us a call. We could talk about it, maybe help you out a little bit. And that's something what we were just talking about, what I was thinking about was, I was thinking about, we use this word battle often, right? And I used to think, because I've suffered from depression, and I've been like, I'm battling it. A battle would mean you could actually win.
Well, sure.
Right. If you're fighting depression, depression's going to win. It's like going to a gunfight with a knife.
Well, with professional help, depression's very treatable.
Right.
Yeah. And it's something we commonly treat. And it's a very common illness.
Let's welcome our guest tonight. We have a couple of amazing guests. I know we have one, but she's friends with the other, so that would mean both are probably amazing. Our first guest owns and I'm not just saying this. Everybody says this. We've actually commissioned her at Klean. She's the owner and proprietor of SoberIsSexy.com. Hayley Mortenson. I finally could say your name right after knowing you for about 3 years. I've been calling you Mortenson like you're the steakhouse. And welcome, Hayley.
Thank you. It's good to be here again. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's great to have you back. To all the people out there, Hayley you've got a heck of a story that I have no idea about. Former model.
Correct.
You don't seem like you want to talk about that. She's a model in the Witness Relocation Program, and she's wearing a shirt. Why don't you show the people out there at cleanradio.com?
Yeah.
Because we are also on. We stream. The only Coke I do is diet, and it's a great shirt. And the company's called Sober Sexy.
Yeah, it's a fun line.
We're
having
really
a really good time with it. Yeah.
And we have also in the studio with us film producer Jim Swaggart. James. I'm sorry, James Swaggart. And I'm sorry. I'm sure you've gotten that a few times.
A few times.
It's better than your name being like the son of Sam. Similar as that. At least with this, the guy was successful for a while.
I changed my last name to Baker, but that didn't work either.
That's actually pretty funny.
Thank you.
And they both have the name Jimmy. So we have James Swaggart in the studio also. So, you've been sober for a ton of years.
23.
23 years. My God, you're sober longer than our whole room here combined.
Mm-hmm.
And welcome to Klean Radio. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Hayley, what is Sober is Sexy?
Sober is Sexy is a clothing line that we've had just for almost 2 years, and it's all about sending out a message of positivity and being sober, but at the same time trying to reach. I guess our goal was to target younger generation and let them feel that being sober is cool. And so we had to do the clothing line was sort of it's a dark, edgy, punk rock and roll clothing line with the spin of positivity, and it seems to be reaching people all over the world. So it's been a lot of fun.
I'm just happy you didn't choose Pepsi.
Me too.
Yeah, because
Never
I like
liked
that.
Pepsi.
I'm a Diet Coke guy.
No.
And also, so one of the things we've been talking about, we were talking about a little bit about is depression. Mm-hmm. And you both, you're both obviously sober. You're both in the rooms. And one of the things I like to talk about a lot is that when people get sober a little bit of time, that's when they tend to get depressed. Some people, not all people, and they have there's this fear of talking out loud about how you might be going through a rough time, because I have 10 years sober, everything should be great.
Right.
Or I have 3 years sober and I don't want to talk about my issues anymore.
Life is tough, though, even if you're sober.
Right.
It's worse if you're not.
But yeah, life. You're right. Life is, it's life. Yeah.
I don't know what you're expecting, but
I'm a doc. I was expecting greatness every day, and every day of my life.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. Have you encountered that at all?
I have very strong opinions on this issue, and I,
You could share them.
I plan on it.
Okay.
No, and as the doctor mentioned early on, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or a physician. But it is a very serious disease. My issue with it is that I wish when we were speaking about the depression, the doctor and you, I believe, are speaking about, I wish we'd refer to it as clinical depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even, you can correct me, doctor. But what bothers me is that I feel that there are two types of depression. There's depression that people experience in life because it's a natural emotion.
Unhappiness.
Right.
I disagree. I think that depression is a natural emotion, and I'll go into that in a second. But that when we're talking about two different things, there's an emotion here that I believe that the pharmaceutical companies have purchased, this word depression.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's clinical depression, which is a serious chemical imbalance that needs to be addressed. I think there's two different things here. And when we talk about this, and the word depression gets thrown around very nonchalantly, that bothers me because in my personal opinion, there were times in my life where I was very depressed. I had written a suicide note in high school. I was suicidal in adulthood as well. And what happened for me, and there are people, and as you said, if that's not treated, if that goes untreated and people aren't able to ask for help, it can definitely spiral and go into what I believe is then clinical depression, and it needs to gets treated with meds and that sort of thing. But I really believe in what was taught to me by a spiritual mentor was that emotions are a divine influx. And for me to feel this, because I believe that I was at the point in my life that if somebody would have put me in front of the doctor, he would have easily diagnosed me as depressed.
I think with Dr. Ko, you might be surprised.
Well, I don't,
Right.
not knowing his practice and that sort of thing.
What I was describing was what we call major depression, which is clinical depression. I fully agree with you that emotions are a very real, ordinary part of life, and we all get depressed, and there is such a thing as ordinary depressive feelings, but what I'm trying to describe is a pervasive sadness that makes every day dark, and that these people are spiraling down and down into the depths of despair. That's what I'm talking about.
Sure, and you just clarified that, and I wish when we spoke about that, used that word, that it was qualified in that way, because we don't. And what happens is because there was a point where I heard other people talking about depression, and they were on antidepressants and that sort of thing, and I was looking at my life going, wow, I think I'm depressed. I think I need to go on antidepressants. And thank God the person that I was with was a therapist, and he didn't see what you're talking about, which is prolonged, but it was pretty, suicidal thoughts is pretty serious.
Right.
And so, but what he said to me was, he said, let's try a spiritual solution here. Let's have you get out of yourself, clean up your mess, clean up your life, and start to get out of yourself and be of service to others. If that doesn't change and affect things, because what he referred to, that depression was a divine influx. He goes, that's your, Rumi's got a great quote that it goes, the body better than I knows the way. And that was my gut talking to me. And I've got to listen to that and then make some changes and make some adjustments in my life. And I was able to do that, and I was able to come out of that without any kind of antidepressants or any kind of medication. So,
by the way, if you just tuned in,
your life.
before, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Klean Radio Live. That's Klean with a K. Give us a call. The number here is 888-539-2980. 888-539-2980. In the studio tonight with psychiatrist Dr. Jason Ko, owner of Sober Sexy Hayley Mortenson, and a man with a great opinion, James Sweigert, film producer. You've also had a degree in chemical dependence. And we're talking about depression, but that is also why I asked, by the way, what is depression? Because I agree with you. Terms get thrown out a lot now. Everybody's got ADD. Everybody's got ADHD. It's like if a kid is, acting out, we label it.
And there's a pill for every...
Right,
yeah.
and there's a pill for everything. And that's one of the great things I love about Dr. Ko is he's one of those people that actually believes in psychotherapy.
Big time.
Right, big time. He would much rather treat a patient for 4 days a week than put him on a pill so he doesn't, so he could bill him for an hour or for 20 minutes. And that's if they remembered they actually saw you. And we are a call-in show, and we do have a call. We have Michelle from Costa Mesa. She's been drinking before you. Okay. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to Clean Radio.
Hey, guys. I actually talked to you a couple weeks ago.
Yes, you were driving from Vegas. I remember that.
Yeah. My friend and I were driving from Vegas. So, after the call, it kind of sparked a lot of things. And I just wanted to tell you guys thank you, for one, because, we did kind of do a little test on ourselves and, abstain. Actually,
why don't you tell us again what happened?
Okay, so we were talking about before we went out, we like to drink before we go out, and part of it is like a money thing, but it did spark the question, like, do we feel like we really have to drink before we go out because do we need to be buzzed, that quick and have fun, or have our drink on, to have fun? And then it raised some other questions about how much are we drinking? We like to drink when we get home from work, and then do we really need to start thinking about this? We're getting into our mid to late 30s, and we hear when we're talking about not wanting to be dependent on it or knowing when that time is. So anyhow, we with just friends, and then we both said, okay, well, try not to drink for a couple weeks, and we did it, and it was great. We actually were a little bit more productive when we did some workouts
and a little richer.
And so
felt better.
Went out, did some hikes, and
which is what James was talking about.
What's that?
Which is what our guest was talking about, which is the the spiritual, the getting into shape, right, working on your mind.
Yeah, they taught us in kindergarten everything we needed to know, right? Diet and exercise.
Yeah. So sorry, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, yeah, and amazingly, without even trying it, I dropped probably like 10 pounds, and and then it really...
Well, for vanity's sake alone.
Right. Which, you know what? I got to tell you, a lot of people do get sober because of vanity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see. And that definitely has an effect on why some people get sober. So are you going to drink again? Are you not going to drink again?
Well, I think after the first couple weeks, I think when I talked to you, it was maybe about, it was the weekend of St. Patty's Day, so it's been about a month, a little bit over. So after that, definitely didn't quit, but pulled it back a lot, and really feeling like, I think it was almost like a little bit of a growing up thing for us.
Sounds like a good thing, though.
Yeah.
It sounds like everything you're saying is really positive, having stopped for 2 weeks. Imagine, if you did a little longer.
Yeah, you might lose 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Although I hope, I don't know how much you have to lose. So maybe if you did lose 20, that you'd be emaciated, and I don't want you to become anorexic.
But the thing is, what I want to say to Michelle, because she brought up some really good points, is the fact that when you talk about, having to have that buzz before you go out, or having to feel something before you go out, what is it that makes you feel the need to? I know for me, when I drank, I was a lot sexier and prettier and
I
funnier.
could dance.
I was everything, when I got my buzz on before I went out, and in getting sober, to get a chance to really look at myself and allow things to come up for me. It's just something to maybe look at. Because I'm sure you're a cool person.
There used to be this great commercial on TV. It was one of my favorite commercials. And all you see is this guy, and he looks really well-built. He's in the bathroom, and he's flexing in the mirror. And you see this well-built guy, and then he puts on his glasses. And he's fat. And that was drinking. That, to me, was how I when I would drink exactly like you were talking about.
Yeah.
It gave me this liquid courage, and that was my biggest fear of getting sober, was that I wouldn't be, how do you do that stuff? And the truth was, I didn't know how.
Right.
I had to learn everything when I got sober. I had to learn how to ask a girl out on a date. I had to learn how to go to school. I had to learn how to apply for school, and all these things. And I think a lot of people don't, that fear, could really prevent you from getting to that. Fear prevents you from getting, because we're okay with, uncomfortability.
But I think when we're drinking, we think that the fear is actually there. Actually,
Right.
when you get sober, the fear is much less.
Okay,
That's
Michelle,
true.
thank you for
Yeah.
keeping us updated. Thank you for calling us again.
Hey, thanks for your show.
Have a
Really
great
good.
night. The number here is 888-539-2980. You're listening to Klean Radio. That's 888-539-2980. We were talking about depression. The reason I brought it up tonight was because of Junior Seau, sadly dying, just an amazing football player. But we're talking about, and we're in the studio tonight with amazing guest, Hayley Mortenson from Sober is Sexy, James Sweigert from just a great film producer, I'm guessing. And and you're right, we do throw out a lot of words, and we throw out the word depression a lot. Somebody's unhappy, somebody's sad, oh, they're depressed. Before actually working on other ways of figuring out why they're unhappy, whether it's going to the gym every day, that might help you, going to church, going to temple, being of service in your community. And we also, Dr. Jason Coe. And so, again, what is depression? Just what is clinical depression?
Well, I think we went over that.
Yeah. But again, people just tuning in.
Okay, it's a serious clinical syndrome marked by sadness, and not just the ordinary sadness that happens in the course of a day, but or something bad happens, but it's a sadness that does not quit. And then one starts to get other symptoms that are associated with it. The sadness will deepen. There's crying, there's appetite changes, there's sleep disturbance. There's really an inability to experience pleasure or enjoyment in life. And as I said before, they spiral into a point where they start feeling helpless, hopeless, worthless. And then they start having suicidal ideation, which can actually progress to, you know what, I'm no good, I've just got to get rid of myself.
So James was talking about, right, you were in high school, and
Yes.
you wrote a suicide letter.
Yes.
Was that were you at that point, or was that for or do you?
And we're also talking about an adolescent, which, they experience a lot of strong feelings, and it would not be unusual for an adolescent to think about suicide. Adolescents also, there are a lot of copycat, like somebody else tries it. But you can tell us more about your experience. And,
Thanks a lot
Yeah.
for diminishing my
Right.
emotions. And,
Well,
no, I'm
Copycat.
teasing you. Okay.
Yeah.
Adolescence is a very tough period of life, and I think people underestimate how hard it is to be a teenager, and all the changes that are going on.
Well, it's like when 13 came out. You know what I'm saying?
The movie.
Cutting, the
Oh,
movie.
I didn't see-
The cutting rate went up like beyond.
Well, that's another.
In teenage
It's another.
girls.
Thing
So-
that a lot of. We're going to talk about a few things when we come back. We're going to go to break soon. But one of the things that we're going to talk about is spice in the military. They drugged.
Old Spice? Oh, no.
Not Old Spice. That might be healthier than the spice. And what's
Oh.
amazing is you're talking about, because there's also a recent story with teenagers. They're drinking the hand sanitizer. And
Nice.
I mean,
On the rocks.
on the rocks. That's exactly right. And
I
they're
hate,
drinking
it
hand-
when I go to use it and it's empty.
That's exactly
know.
why, right? And
That
apparently
happens.
they're using the towels too, because those are always empty. But they're drinking this hand sanitizer, and again, teenagers are always going to find new stuff to, a couple of years ago, I went to Target and I wanted to get the stuff that you can clean your computer with, the spray,
Right.
and they carded me online. And
Wow.
because you have to be above the age of 18 to buy that spray that cleans your computer off. And and I want to ask this question: Did we do this when we were 18? Doc, I know for you that was way longer than the rest of us. But is it getting worse, or is just these are things that are being reported about more?
I think it's been going on forever. It's just whatever that escape is. I mean,
It's been going on. I agree.
I've worked with a lot of adolescents. I do a lot of mentoring and work with a lot of addiction and a number of extensive for 23 years. A lot of adolescents I work with, and there's always the and I'm sure the rest of the panel can attest to this, but there's always a consistent theme. It's some sort of childhood trauma, whether it's abuse, incest, molest. There's always some sort of family of origin trauma that's the one common denominator. And so for most of us who've been motivated to get clean and sober based on having issues with it, with drugs or alcohol, it's there always seems to be what's that escape?
Right.
What's that escape? For me, it was my art before I found alcohol at 12.
For me, it was food. And we're about to go to a break. If you just tuned in, you're listening to Klean Radio Live. That's Klean with a K on 980 KFWB News Talk 980. The number here is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. Give us a call with any questions, concerns, anything you might have. That's one more time. That's 888-539-2980. We'll be right back. The discussion continues at cleanradio.com.
Are you struggling with an addiction that's ruining your life? Want to have a confidential conversation with a professional that will immediately assist you? Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs and would like a free drug testing kit and consultation? Klean Treatment Center is standing by right now to help those with addictions and the people who care about them. Call 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. Or go to Klean Treatment Center, that's Klean with a K, cleantreatmentcenter.com.
It's just Judah tonight and Dr. Jason Coe. Dr. Coe, when the light is on, that means we are on the air.
Okay, we're on.
And you're chatty Cathy tonight. Props to you.
Oh, yeah?
And the personality's coming out. And Doc, you're one of the greatest, and I was complimenting you a couple of weeks ago. By the way, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Klean Radio Live. You just did this amazing interview on Good Day Creepiness or Good Day LA, whatever they call it.
Thank you.
And where it looks like they all literally just got out of a strip joint and came on the air. But one of my favorite things, and we're never going to be invited back on, but one of my favorite things, Doc, was Dr. Coe, and why I love him, and why I swear by him, is because you were on the air, and whenever people on the air, they'll be as salacious as possible. They were talking about Whitney Houston, and they go to Dr. Coe, and they're trying to get these answers out of him, like he knew Whitney Houston,
right.
And he's like, well, I didn't know her, I can't answer it, and he's giving these honest answers, and it's like when I ask him why did the drugs work, why do certain antidepressants go, he goes, I don't know. They just do. Well, and when the psychiatrists say, you want to?
Right. We really don't know. There are a lot of theories.
Yeah. I mean, how many psychiatrists?
I love it.
If you say to them, or if you say to them, I'm in trouble, they don't say, here's a pill. They say, come to my office, come back to my office, come back to my office, and let's talk. Anyways, that's enough.
I think the problem was I studied physics in college, and that was real science. And
And you're a smart guy, Doc. And anyways, if you just tuned in, give us a call. The number is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. We're in the studio tonight with owner, proprietor, amazing woman extraordinaire, Hayley Mortenson. After 3 years, I finally could say her name correctly. Who created just an amazing shirt called a company called Sober Sexy, which one of their shirts is the only Coke I drink is Diet. She brought into the studio tonight.
It's the only Coke I do. Is Diet. Right.
And she brought in James Sweigert, film producer, also certified alcohol drug counselor, something like that.
In my past, yes.
In his past, you didn't lose the certification.
TV producer, but that's
TV.
right.
Okay, TV producer. Right. But I won't ask you what it is you have produced,
and I won't tell you.
I'm going to ask. Now you make me.
Just try
IMDb.
Just try and spell my name.
You know what's going to come up.
Just try and spell my name on IMDb.
Preacher.
Yeah, the preacher.
And,
he just liked to watch.
And we have a great Facebook question out there. The question was taking a lot of painkillers, stopped on my own for a few months, but still have the cravings. Is this something I need rehab for? That is actually a great question. And who wants to answer first? Instead of nodding, that is a great question.
I say we go to the professional first.
That's me now. Doc.
Probably not. When you're talking about inpatient rehab, I would say no, because we don't need a detox here. And this person, I assume, is still sober. So that's a good thing. But the cravings do need to be attended to. And in that regard, I would think about an outpatient program.
With meetings, with 12-step meetings.
Well, which include meetings,
right.
But and just an evaluation to see what's going on. I assume that they're going to meetings already.
Right. Oh, and you own a rehab, and you're telling people this is how honest this guy is. That's an honest psychiatrist. That's pretty amazing. And I'm going to stop. Yeah, but you're right. Go to outpatient, have people checking in on you, having somebody to report to almost.
Yeah. Exactly. But is there something that can be done about the cravings? Do the cravings represent some kind of underlying psychological issue that needs to be examined more closely? I don't know.
I'm going to let James go with that one too, because I know you probably, you might want to share how you got sober, what you've done to maintain it.
There have been I mean, I know that's a slippery slope for a lot of people. I know a lot of my friends, have been sober for a long time that they have a back injury or something, and then they go on Vicodin or something, that some type of painkiller, and that really takes them out.
That's dangerous.
That triggers cravings, and then they end up out smoking crack or whatever.
And alcohol is a huge trigger. Don't think that if you have a pain pill problem that you can have a drink, because you will be on pain pills before you know it.
Which is what a lot of people we're constantly finding, right? It's and I constantly always say to people, it's like, but why could they? When we see people in rehab and they go, well, why can't I drink?
But also, let's get to the question for a second.
Yes.
It said this person is saying that they've been off of
stopped
pills
on my own
for 2 months,
right? So
right?
when I say stopped on my own, I'm assuming that means they probably aren't going to meetings.
Okay.
They're probably white knuckling it. I'm going to assume for them because that's usually what's stopping on my end, but still have the cravings. And also, if you want to give us a call, this is such a hard thing to talk about on the air.
We need more information on
give
that
us a call at 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. We know that this is a hard thing for people to talk about, but we don't want to answer something that we're not fully, about the problem. I just have to give a little bit of a shout out. First of all, you're listening to Klean Radio Live. That's Klean with a K. When I was a kid growing up in Brooklyn, I had a lot of issues, and I lived, people that helped save my life didn't even realize they were helping save my life, whether it was watching TV shows and listening to music. And there was a great band. I'm from Brooklyn, and I got to give a shout out to MCA, who died this weekend, and he did it right. And sadly, cancer got him, and people I don't think always realize when they're making music, when they're creating crafts. And which is one of the reasons I love living in Los Angeles. And it's like what you created your shirts, the Sober Sexy line.
Well, it's like what Dick Clark said. He's like, music is the soundtrack of your life.
Right.
And when you think about that, it influences all of us in such a huge way.
Absolutely. Music is such a big part of who we are. And every culture has music.
What was your favorite, Doc, when you were... What influenced your life?
In music?
Yeah.
The Beatles and Mozart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What about you,
That's
Hayley?
a hot combo.
You're a punk. Yeah, that is a pretty cool combo. And Hayley, you're in the punk scene a little bit, right?
I've heard of both of them, actually.
Yeah,
I guess
have
I
too.
dated myself.
You did date yourself, Doc. At least you didn't say
Mozart,
Louis
yeah.
Armstrong.
Mozart and I used to have coffee together.
Yeah.
Well, I like it all because I think it's like I said, I think it's all different types of music. I mean, from Billie Holiday to, some of the old greats to punk rock to some of the things you've turned me on to and music
really
of
funny.
today.
But yes, musically.
Yeah.
And,
sorry.
And so yes, but who when the influences? So I'm talking about the.
Well,
Beastie Boys.
I grew up. Beastie Boys were a big part of my life, and
Right.
that music is. It just changes people. And go
But
ahead.
I think what you're doing is the same thing. I think your company designing these designing these logos
Right.
for teenagers to see, for people that are struggling to see. They see somebody walking down the street and they see the only Coke I do is diet.
Right.
They see sober is sexy. They see some of the other logos. It's no different than me being the kid at home listening to the music or watching the movie and seeing a positive message. It really is pretty amazing that people are going to walk down the street. And you have a daughter is she in the company with you?
She is, and she's 23, and she almost has a year sober.
Happy. That is absolutely amazing, and I know that it is. There is something to, I think, obviously the positive energy, but peer pressure the positive way.
Well, and it was in looking at kids and looking at people that were younger, not having the feeling of, oh well, there's so much peer pressure, and when you get sober, I think it's tough when you're young, and so you really need companies out there and people out there who are saying, you know what, it's okay to be sober. It's amazing.
Right.
And so many people are afraid to to feel, and everyone is out there trying to escape. And so why not get sober and see what it's about and give it a shot?
Which is something both of you guys were talking about, James and Dr. Coe. Sort of, it's very interesting. You were saying how, you know, it's okay to have feelings, and I think we're told sometimes
Feelings are authentic, you know.
that should be your new slogan.
Yeah.
That is, I'm not the designer in the room, but that is, you're right. Feelings are authentic.
You know, and you know what better than to feel what life is, inside and outside.
That's our new shirt. Sober is the new black.
Sober is I'm not going to go there.
I'd like to know. I want to chime in about the music. I think that's a great way to speak about what, you know, all of what we're talking about, because, you know, for me it was the Ramones and the Sex Pistols, and I was more the punk. I kind of went the way of punk, but my parents were like rodeo people, so I grew up on, like, you know, George Jones and, you know, Merle Haggard. So I listened to a lot of diversity and a lot of country. Yeah. And but, you know, I was just thinking about, you know, music, there's much more of a conversation about being clean. There are a lot more, you know, lead singers and songwriters that are clean and talk about it and sing about it in their music today, because, you know, you think about it. What if Jimi Hendrix would have lived? What if Jim Morrison would have lived? And what if those guys would have survived their
Janis
addiction?
Joplin.
And
How amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, you look at, there were a lot of sad losses, and you know, it wasn't spoken about. You know, there was a lot of crazy times in the, you know, 70s, or, you know, 60s and 70s. But now I think there's much more of a conversation about addiction. And I think it's great, you know, and I think a lot of people, even like Eminem, you know, stuff that he's rapping about is just that angst and that anger and that stuff that you were talking about, Doctor, about that adolescents just don't know how to process. But there's music with so much of that, you know, and that's what I found in punk rock back in the day, where you wouldn't hear that stuff on radio. You'd have to go buy it at Tower Records in the back bin, you know, but you could hear people just screaming and cussing, and that's what I identified. And that had really helped me get through a lot of my really hard times, that to know that someone else was feeling it too. And you know, that's the important thing. And I think that's great what you're doing here about being able to just go on the airwaves and reach out to people and just say, you know, the people like Hayley and I can come on and say, you know, me too.
Talk about the struggle, you know. And you know, it's really cool what you were just saying, and it's you know, I was the Coldplay the other night performed, and they did this, you know, homage with no sleep till you got to fight for your right to party. And it's really cool that they played this melodic version of You Got to Fight for Your Right, and it could be a guitar, it could have been Coldplay that wrote the song, because it is about the words, it is about the lyrics, and it is about the way you get touched by it. And that's one of the cool things I love about these words, you know, that I'm reading with, you know, you're right, we can, by being open and honest, people can get help. And I think people out there that are listening that are struggling, just all you have to do is say, I'm done, I can't anymore, and call up and get help. And by the way, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Klean Radio Live. That's Klean with a K. We're in the studio tonight with Dr. Jason Coe, also the owner of Sober is Sexy, Hayley Mortenson, and TV producer who won't tell me any shows that he produces, James Sweigert, not to be confused with the Reverend.
That is correct.
And we're having some fun in here tonight. It has been a sad week, you know. If you're a football fan, you know, we lost, you know, Junior Seau. If you're a music fan, Adam Yauch from the Beastie Boys. And we're talking about depression. We're talking about real depression compared with, and I think, James, I want to get back to what you were talking about when you were a teenager, because there are people out there that are going, you know, whether it's girls that are cutting, you know, drinking these hand sanitizers, doing all these things. How did you get out of it?
Well, you know, my art was a huge escape. You know, I got lost in my art, and as a result of that, escapism, became a very talented artist and successful, you know, creative person. But then once, you know, alcohol and drugs, I found that worked for me, and that was my escape. I think that luckily I had a lot of amazing brothers. And it was one of my brothers that really saved my life and brought me out of it. But, you know, I had gotten into that, you know, I had my own issues, you know, growing up that, you know, I was trying to run from, escape from. I wasn't able to process those emotions naturally, you know, and I think that's the best way to get through emotions is right through them and let them come through you and you feel them. You know, I've spent a lot of time in the last 23 years feeling unfelt feelings from my childhood that you know, places where bad things happen to me and I just shut down.
And the message is, it is manageable.
Yes.
There is help. There
Yeah,
always-
absolutely.
yeah.
And I think that one of the, I had gone to, there have been points in my life where I had gone into suicidal thoughts and just thought, wow, I want to check out. I don't want to be here. And one of my friends said one of the greatest things I've ever heard on that topic. He said, what if when you killed yourself, the pain didn't go away?
Can I tell you something? That is so profound what you just said, and that is one of my worst fears of drinking before I die, is that, God forbid, I have to live this life again as a drunk.
But then he topped it with this. He said, what if when you killed yourself, the pain got worse?
Well, that's an existential issue, but it's very
It
interesting.
worked for me.
I mean, think, and what Judah was saying is very interesting. If you had to live this life over and over again, how would you live it?
Yeah, I want to say one thing. If I ever have to come back, Lord knows, I want to come back sober.
Well,
okay, I want my sober soul.
What's so funny is when this little girl was talking to me, she was 14, and she said, it's so funny with my friends at school. She goes to a school in Los Angeles, and they're all like, let's party. We've got one life. And she's like, yeah, we've got one life. We don't have 5 or 10. If I had 10 lives, yeah, I'd party in one of them, or maybe 2 or 3. But we only do have one life. So I thought that was really cool.
That is that's an amazing answer.
Yeah.
Very brilliant answer, actually. Yeah. Because I guess as Andrew, who's out tonight, would always say very Eastern, or is that Western? It was very West. I don't know, I'm very bad with which philosophy it is. But the eat, drink, and die.
Southern
eat, drink, and die tomorrow. And I think we have lost a bit of...
That's Western.
Western,
yeah,
okay,
Western
philosophy. Listen, at least I could say I don't know. And I just learned something new tonight on Klean Radio. So Western philosophy is about debauchery.
How'd you get this gig?
You don't want to know. I have pictures, and amazing pictures.
Amazing headshot.
And yeah.
For radio.
But I have a great face for radio. And
but I want to say something also. When you're talking about depression and you're talking to people out there tonight, it is also about isolation, and the thing is to reach out and to get help and to not feel like you're alone.
But isn't that part of the problem, Doc? It's like people are depressed, and I constantly we deal with this. We deal with this with people that are bipolar, really bipolar, that they go off their meds often, right? They start feeling better.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
And it's like it's such a. Is there a solution to that? Is there going to come the point, whether it's they stick something in their body that it automatically discharges the medicine?
Well, I think that goes back to what the doctor was talking about, where that cognitive therapy is so important because it can't just be about a pill.
Yeah.
It can't. I mean, maybe in some extreme cases, I actually take that back. But for a lot of us, we all and I. By the way, I love having a good time. I love laughing and joking. And I certainly don't mean to belittle the topic depression that we have tonight. It's very serious. But and I know I can speak for Hayley and I. And it sounds like you as well. We love being sober.
Oh,
I want to be. If I can't be happy doing this, I went skydiving last year and just dove out of an airplane. Yeah. Something I swore I'd never do.
I did that 10 years ago.
I surf. I travel. It's like I really love living. Clean. And it's just, I feel better. I can tell you those feelings we were talking about that I used to anesthetize myself from with drugs and alcohol, I feel. And so the joys are greater, but the pains when I ask for help, which is what we're talking about now, that's the difference is you've got to be able to ask. I wish Junior Seau would have been able to call one of his brothers in the NFL alumni group and just say, hey man, I'm hurting. I need some help. And you know what? Those guys would have showed up for him.
Okay. So here's the point I want to make. You're a good looking dude. That's what Hayley said. You're in shape.
I'm taken.
You're smart, and I want to paint this picture out there to the people listening. You're successful. You have all these, and you're okay to say, "I need help."
Absolutely.
And that's an important message because I think, especially pro sports. Not just pro sports. It's it's like the old guy that retires and is dead 2 weeks later, because he didn't know what else to do. It's something with men that as far as
how can a hero be weak?
How can a hero How can the guy that we're dealing with obviously the economy is in torture right now. You have men losing their jobs that can't pay for their families, and who do they turn to? And it's okay to say it's okay. I remember one time I spoke at a meeting, and I've dealt with food issues in my life, and it's not always easy for a dude to say, hey, do I look okay today? Weigh myself a couple times, but I remember I was speaking at an all men's meeting, and after I shared about my food issues, a couple really tough looking guys walk up to me, and I thought they were going to be like, how you shouldn't be sharing about food issues at a 12 at this type of 12-step meeting. They walk up to me, they go, thank you so much for sharing that. Nobody ever talks about that, and we've dealt with it. And it was an amazing thing that at first I was intimidated by the way they looked. I had all these images in my mind that they were going to be scared of what I was going to say, but in the end of the day, when you share from the heart. But
doesn't that speak about American culture, though? It really does. Just about the vanity,
sure.
And just just how narcissistic we've become. And you look at a lot of older cultures, especially in Europe and that sort of thing. And I'm really active in the men's movement, which is about men helping men. And there isn't a lot of that, because it's like men think it's like this old thing about I got to do it on my own, and the pride and the ego and all of that, and it's like that'll just get get in the way of you being happy and being able. We're all on this planet together. We've got that sense of community is vanishing from American culture, and it's just I've got to be in my BMW by myself in my gated community and check out, and it's like man, it's like people need to come together. People need to come together and talk about what's going right and what's going wrong, and you know what, we've got to help each other.
And the problem is getting worse because
and fathers need to be more openly loving towards their children.
Absolutely.
And their sons.
Absolutely.
Especially.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things I love about the 12 steps is really about the 12-step program is it talks about love and service. And those are words that are so important, is that, it's like, if somebody's going through a rough time, it's okay to say, just to say whatever I could do for you. Just, I'm here as a friend, whatever you need. And I think we're lost sometimes because we text. And we have this whole next generation that has no interaction. 16-year-old kids now, Doc, aren't going for their driver's licenses because they say, why do I need to go for my driver's license?
Oh.
When I was 16, the first thing I wanted to do was get out of the house and get in a car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're changing. You have kids now that are just like, why drive?
They're not even interested in talking on the phone anymore. It's all text.
Well, they don't want to drive because they need to text.
Yeah, it's right. So maybe we should allow texting and driving just so kids actually take their road test. But
and I turn in my car.
Yeah, but it's like amazing. It's like what happened to the. You're right. Something changed, and I don't know what it is. By the way, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Klean Radio Live. That's Klean with a K. We're a show about addiction recovery, and tonight about a lot of other things, whether it's depression, getting out of your house, and I think all of these things are linked together. Whether it's alcoholism, addiction, depression. We're in the studio tonight with, give us a call, 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. We're in the studio tonight with Dr. Jason Coe, an amazing psychiatrist. If anybody out there listening needs help and is scared to call tonight, I beg of you to go to Dr. Coe's website. What's your website?
Dr. Coe, MD.
Dr. Coe, MD. That's a great name, by the way. And
cool?
It was funny before
you should
the show.
Spell it. You should spell it for people on radio.
Dr. COEMD. Dr. COEMD.com. And I'm not going to say www since that hasn't been in vogue in about 26 years. We're also in the studio tonight with Hayley Mortenson, owner, proprietor of SoberIsSexy.com. Where obviously people find you at SoberIsSexy.com.
Correct.
They could order your shirts there. They could get all that jazz.
Yes, they can get everything there. And we also sell with Kat Von D, who's also sober and has a really cool store called Wonderland. And hopefully in more stores to come, but right now on the site.
And something very cool, if people out there want an amazing designer, Hayley is designing the Klean Radio logo T-shirts, and she did this. They're not out yet, but it looked amazing. And I encourage anybody out there, if they want an amazing logo, go to this woman. I want to call her Hayley Logo Mortenson.
But I also want to also mention I have a great graphic designer who works with us, and he's amazing. He's an incredible artist.
He is.
Yeah, very visual and gets it.
And we have James Sweigert, TV producer, who won't tell me any of his credits, and he's also an amazing. I got to tell you, Hayley, you guys, they're dating. You seem, I'm really glad you brought in James tonight. And sorry,
it's okay, Rick.
And And I love your take on this stuff. And
Sorry.
Hayley forgot to put her phone on silent.
Newcomers.
That's gonna be your new nickname. But I want
was.
to tell you something funny. It's amazing that when we started the show, you came in and the synergy happened where we realized in the end of the day we're all on the same page. I think it's like to get people help.
I'm just glad he wasn't a quack.
Yeah, I'm glad. Well, we have a rule here at Clean Radio: no quacks allowed. And
No, because I've and you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked.
There are plenty of them. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have a number of celebrity friends that I've worked with, professionally and not professionally. Who, I mean, the Michael Jackson story is a classic story of just yes men around him and just codependent to death. And
there's a bunch of charlatans in this industry.
Yeah, and it's just I worked with a guy who had been prescribed 37 different medications at once by a doctor in this town, and the guy, it's amazing, the guy survived. And, he was able to go on and have, do some amazing things with his life, a musician. And so it just, and I know a lot of great, psychiatrists that are out there that work as he does, that just understands the importance of addressing not just the symptoms, but the core issues and the core problems, because really that's where the rubber hits the road there, is if you don't address that stuff, they might be okay for 5 years or 10 years, but who knows when that's going to rear its ugly head down the road. And
we have to help that person find the truth inside of them.
Yeah.
And it's something I often talk about. One of the things, and I don't. This isn't a shameless plug, because if you call up Clean, we'll send you to anywhere you think you might need help. But one of my favorite things about the Clean Treatment Center is that it's one of the few places when they say dual diagnosis, they actually mean it. They don't just get you in there, put you on a drug, say, it's let's deal with you. Let's figure this out. Let's keep you as long as we need to keep you, even if you can't afford it. We're going to keep you because we do scholarship beds. And we don't just throw people on the street like insurance up, done. Well, take your medicine and go on the road. And
we have what I would call a therapeutic community approach to addiction.
But I think it's one of the few things that actually manages to make the big book, the alcohol, the 12 steps and treatment, the work together, because I don't believe a lot of institutions that claim to do this are doing it. They, it's like either this or it's that. Everybody is a little bit different, and everybody needs their own guidance. Mm-hmm. And whether it's you're going through depression, whether it's you're going through anything, but I think the most important message that all of us are sharing tonight is no matter what you're going through out there, give us a call. And if you're out there,
there's help.
There's always help.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're not alone.
Right. There is no help once you pick up that gun.
That's right.
And it's very weird. And I don't want to really, because there's not enough time to bring this up, but it's a very odd thing. He's the second football player that shot himself in the heart. And there are obviously a couple theories on this. I've known none of them, but it's a very odd thing. And I was thinking maybe he wanted an open casket funeral. Or maybe he wanted his brain checked out. And I'm praying is that he wanted his brain checked out, so future athletes don't have to die from, concussions. And once again, I'd really like to thank our guests in the studio. If you'd like to find, other episodes of the show, go to cleanradio.com. That's Clean with a K. Once again, I want to thank James Sweigert for coming in. TV producer. You're always welcome back.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed this. Hayley Mortenson, owner and proprietor of SoberIsSexy.com, all around an amazing woman. And Dr. Jason Coe. What's more to say about Dr. Coe? Go to his website, drcoemd.com. That's drcoemd.com. The discussion continues at cleanradio.com. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
Are you struggling with an addiction that's ruining your life? Want to have a confidential conversation with a professional that will immediately assist you? Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs and would like a free drug testing kit and consultation? Clean Treatment Center is standing by right now to help those with addictions and the people who care about them. Call 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. Or go to Clean Treatment Center, that's Clean with a K, cleantreatmentcenter.com.